Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. If you find yourself new to my channel, please consider subscribing for future content, and please leave a like on this video as it helps my video perform at a much higher level and reach that many more listeners. If you would like your story featured on an upcoming video, email my email in the description box below at the end of the video. Sit back, relax, enjoy, and stay sinful. I grew up in a small rural town where nothing ever happens. The sort of place where it wasn't unusual to leave your doors unlocked and your closest neighbors are a mile or so from your house. Our family also had this giant older cat, Tag, who was a bit of a drama king, but we loved him. One summer when I was around 9 or 10 years old, the cat starts going ballistic. Tag generally slept in my room curled up next to me until I fell asleep, and then would get up to do whatever cats do in the middle of the night. Occasionally he would meow or try to wake me up on unfortunate nights when he could see the bottom of his food bowl and needed a midnight snack. Usually if I ignored him, he would give up or rarely go try to wake up my mom instead. This night, however, he bangs against my parents' bedroom door until he gets in, and is meowing loud enough to wake up the dead. Our bedroom doors were next to each other, and I called to Tag to come to bed, because it's 2 a.m. He's having none of it, and is carrying on. My mom gets up and goes to the kitchen, and then huffs back up with Tag on her heels still meowing insanely. She said his bowl had plenty of food, and he just walked her to the door of the kitchen. Tag was an indoor-outdoor cat, but had his own cat door through the garage, so there was no need for one of us to let him outside. My mom said my brother must have left the kitchen door open, and just the screen door was shut, but she wasn't holding it open forever for the cat to just stand there and not go out. She shut the kitchen door and went back to sleep, firmly shutting her bedroom door this time, so Tag couldn't let himself back into her room. I always kept treats for him in my room and offered him one, but he was still meowing at the door, trying to get them up. I grabbed him and brought him into my room and shut my door to try and get him to sleep. I lay in bed trying to go back to sleep, and Tag meows at my door wanting back out. I finally open my door and he bolts back downstairs towards the kitchen, and that's when I heard what sounded like a door slamming. I have 3 older siblings though, and someone is always up watching TV or running to the bathroom, so I think nothing of it. The cat finally stalks back into my room, but instead of curling up in my armpit like usual, he sat at the bottom of my bed staring at my door. I fell asleep until morning when some commotion wakes me up, and I pad down to the kitchen to find my parents on the phone with 911. My parents got up as usual to get ready for work, and while making coffee, my mom went to grab her rings from the little jewelry dish she had by the sink, because she would take them off in the evenings to rinse dishes and load the dishwasher, but discovered the dish was empty this morning. Small town, so the sheriff sends a deputy over, and when my dad walks out to meet them, he sees the ATV is missing from out back. The key is off the key ring. My brothers are all up at this point too, and we're all freaked out that while we were sleeping some robber came in and removed the ATV key and saw an opportunity to take my mother's rings. They were asking if we had any clue when it happened. My parents said absolutely not. My mom asked my middle brother, who was a freshman in college and home for the summer, what time he ended up off the couch last night and if he heard anything. He said he went to bed at 10 or 11 and asked what she meant as his bedroom was in the basement and he wouldn't have heard anything in the kitchen. She said, "But you were in the living room off the kitchen when I went to feed the cat and shut the door you left open, and I told you not to sleep on my couch and go to your bed as I went back upstairs." He told Mom he was in the basement since dinner and never went out or came upstairs again. He watched a movie in the basement living room before going to bed in his own bedroom. My mother turned white and realized that the cat must have been trying to warn us someone came into the house, and the robber dove onto the couch and covered up to hide when she came to the kitchen and exited after she went back to bed. The cops said for someone to be so brazen, they probably knew our family, knew our habits, but didn't count on the cat being so overprotective and had probably intended to steal more, was afraid that the cat may wake the whole house. It's been over 20 years since this happened, and the robber was never caught, but it is unnerving to think it was probably someone who had been to our home before as a friend. Thank God for our cat. So my grandmother had dementia, and she used to stay with me because nursing homes were expensive. She would often get up in the middle of the night confused and walking around. It usually wouldn't bother me, but this night was different. On this night I remember it being late, and I was getting ready to go to sleep. It was maybe around 1 a.m. As I'm getting ready, I can faintly hear small footsteps on the creaky wooden floor. I figured it was my grandmother getting up to use the bathroom or something, but when I stepped out of my room, the bathroom had nobody in it. This is when I heard a soft humming noise coming from my grandmother's room. It sounded like someone was humming a song. I walked up to my grandmother's room, and the door was almost fully closed. I opened the door to find a pitch-black room. The light for some reason wouldn't turn on, so I used my phone's flashlight. As I looked around the room, I realized the humming was coming from the closet. As I got close to the closet, the humming then stopped. I opened the door and my grandmother was standing there with her back facing me. I put my hand on her shoulder, and she slowly turned around. She had a smile from ear to ear and just stared at me. I never forgot that night. So creepy. I was around 12 years old when this happened. I lived in a duplex that my parents owned, and one day I was outside in the front yard playing with my dogs. The house was located in a neighborhood that's right by a busy main road, so during the daily rush hour the area got very busy. Thank God for this, because as I was busy with my dogs, I noticed a black car in front of my house that kept inching forward a little and backing up a little. I noticed the driver leering at me in a creepy way, and I got a really bad feeling. I ran up the stairs to where I lived with my parents. I told my mother about what had happened, and I have no idea what was going through her mind at the time, because she didn't seem at all concerned. A few minutes later, she sent me to the grocery store that was a block away, and after griping about it to her, I went walking to the store. As I was walking out the exit while leaving the store, I saw my brother waiting for me outside. He told me to get in and drove me back home. He had been listening to what I told our mom about the guy outside the house, and he reamed her out for making me walk to the store alone, knowing that this guy was lurking around in the neighborhood. To this day, I still get chills knowing how close I came to potentially being raped and or murdered by a pervert. It makes me sick to even think about it, if I'm being completely honest with you. This story is from my sister who is 6 years older than me. We're very close and she doesn't have a Reddit, but this encounter still boggles her mind and mine as well. The timeline isn't exactly clear, but she was still in high school in the early 2000s. There's a campground in California by some Indian reservations that our family grew up camping at. This campground is one way in, one way out, and is an hour drive through a secluded, dark, winding road off the main highway, just to get to the actual campground itself. Her and her friend were camping with some friends there one weekend. Her and her friend were planning on leaving Saturday night late to head back home. They left to head home late, and about 15 minutes into the drive, on the winding road they came across a car that had crashed. She said there was car debris all over the place, plastic, glass, fluids, dust, as it just happened, and a flipped-over car with a man screaming for help. She said he was bleeding and looked like he lost control on the road and had flipped over. No cell service, and no civilization for another 45 minutes ahead. The closest help there was a ranger stationed back at the campground, 15 minutes from where they had just came. Her and her friend got in their car, drove back to the campground fast to alert the rangers. She said they all headed back to the crash site less than 30 minutes later, and there was absolutely nothing there. Nothing. She's talking. No skid marks, no car, no debris, no car fluids, and no man. There's no way any of this nature and mess could be cleaned up in 30 minutes' time, especially for that location. Thinking maybe it was a different turn, they drove ahead more and more along the dark, winding road until the main highway, and no sign of anything. She said the rangers radioed in the authorities, asking about a possible crash and cleanup at all that evening, and nothing was reported. I asked her if they were drinking or anything alike. She said absolutely not, because they knew they had to drive home that night. Her and her friend had a very hard time after processing this, because they had no clue what they witnessed. Her friend ended up going into therapy because of it. My sister did not, but still talks about it to this day. She said her and her friend were trying to do as much research as possible to see if there was anything reported, car crash, accident, and never found a thing of such incidents that night. Confused and still creeped out. It gives me chills. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future content. Until we meet again, have a safe and happy weekend. Stay sinful.